This black genius was kidnapped and sold into slavery for 66 years. But his mind was so powerful he could outcalculate the greatest scholars in the world without ever touching a pen. In 1724, a 14-year-old boy named Thomas Fuller was snatched from his home in West Africa. He was forced through the horrors of the Middle Passage and sold to a planting family in Alexandria, Virginia. For the next 6 decades, the world saw him only as a field hand. He was barred from learning to read or write. He was denied every form of formal education. But inside his mind, a revolution was happening. Fuller taught himself the complex laws of arithmetic by counting the mundane details of his enslavement: the hairs in a cow's tail, the grains in a bushel of wheat, or the distance between trees. By 1780, his reputation as the Virginia calculator had reached the ears of the country's most elite scholars. 2 skeptical abolitionists traveled to Virginia to test the very limits of his humanity. They started with a question that would take a modern person several minutes and a calculator: how many seconds are in a year and a half? Fuller didn't blink. In just 2 minutes, he gave the exact answer: 47,304,000. Then came the real test. They asked him, how many seconds has a man lived who is 70 years, 17 days, and 12 hours old? Fuller went quiet for exactly 90 seconds, then spoke a number that felt impossible: 2,210,500,800. One of the white scholars looked up and smiled. "You're wrong," he said. "Your sum is much too large." Fuller didn't flinch. He looked at the scholar and replied with a calm that terrified slavery's defenders. "Stop, massa. You forget the leap year." When the men added the extra days for the leap years, the numbers matched Fuller's calculation exactly. He had accounted for the rotation of the earth in his head faster than they could calculate it on paper. This wasn't just a parlor trick. It was a devastating blow to the ideology of white supremacy. The entire justification for slavery was built on the lie that black people were intellectually inferior. Thomas Fuller was living, breathing proof that the brilliance of the African mind wasn't just equal, it was superior. Dr. Benjamin Rush eventually used Fuller's story to argue for abolition, showing that the Negro mind was capable of the highest levels of science. When a visitor once told Fuller it was a pity he had never been educated, the old man gave an answer that echoes through history. "No, massa, it is best I had no learning, for many learned men be great fools." Thomas Fuller died in 1790 at the age of 80. He was never given his freedom. He died on the same farm where he had labored for decades. But he died as a man whose mind was never truly enslaved. I want to hear from you in the comments. Why is Thomas Fuller missing from our math textbooks? Is it because the system is still afraid of what happens when we realize that our brilliance was never given to us? It was always there. Share this video. Every time someone tries to tell you that education is the only way to be clever, tell them about the man who calculated 70 years of life in 90 seconds while standing in a field in Virginia.